Hello, friends. Welcome to another Thursday Night Live. Tonight, I'm going to share with you how to make some watercolor cards using Stampin' Up's new Mixed Florals bundle. These cards are so easy. I'm going to show you how easy it really is to do some watercolor, especially when you're using rubber stamps. It doesn't take a lot of, tons of skill, I guess, because you don't have to make the image. The image is already made for you. So if you are here and joining me live, go ahead, leave me a comment. Let me know if you like to do watercoloring or if you've never tried watercoloring. And yeah, I'm interested to know what your watercolor background is. If you're here watching the replay, special welcome to you. I love that you come later to watch the replay. So make sure that you leave me a comment as well. Let me know that you're watching the replay and let me know if you have done watercoloring before and what you think of it. So hello, Laura and Jill. Jill, you've never watercolored. All right. I like to hear that. Hopefully I can inspire you to give it a try. If this is your first time here, I am Heidi with Onigo Stamping. I'm going to help you reconnect with your inner artist through stamps, ink, and paper to make beautiful handmade cards and gifts like this. Carol, you like the look of watercolors, but you're not good at it. All right. Well, hopefully I'll give you some tips to help you improve. And Laura, you love watercolor. Awesome. So excited. All right. I'm going to make my workspace look a little bit bigger so we can get started. We'll talk about what I'm using tonight. So I am using the Mixed Florals bundle. This is part of a larger suite, and it actually has 2 stamp sets to it. The other stamp set is sentiments, but I did not get the other stamp set. Instead, we're going to use the Mix and Match ephemera pack to do our sentiments. But this is one of the online exclusives that just came out last week. Online exclusive just means that it's not in any catalog. You can only see it online, but anyone can order it. It's available to everyone, and you're going to want to check this out. So this is the Mixed Florals stamp set. And with this suite is the Mixed Media Florals. Really imaginative on the names here. The Mixed Media Florals designer series paper. And it has all of these floral images on one side. And y'all, I have to admit, when I look at this in front of me, it's a little too much. Like these flowers, these floral prints are just a little too much. But the cards I made, I absolutely love. So I think you're going to like it too once you see it kind of cut down and put into cards. On the other side, you just have some basic patterns. You have some blacks and whites and all sorts of good stuff. So this is what we're going to use tonight. I'm going to set these full-size pieces out of my way so we can jump into the watercoloring. And I have a piece of the Kat, you said you tried it, you liked it, but was not good at the art part. All right, well, hopefully we have some tips for you tonight. I have a piece of the Fluid 100 watercolor paper. This is about, I think, 3.5 inches, 2.5 inches by 5, which is the width of the watercolor paper. So I just cut off a strip that's about 2.5 inches. And this is what I'm going to stamp on tonight. Now, I did pull out my Stamparatus to use tonight. Stampin' Up no longer makes the Stamparatus, but there's other stamp positioners that you can get that will do much of the same thing. I'm going to move this away. I do have my Glass Mat Studio out tonight, just because with water and everything, if you get a little bit of extra water, it's going to not make too much, it's not going to get all over your table and stuff. So, all right, so I have the Stamparatus here, which is just a stamp positioner. And there are very, very strong magnets that go with this. I'm just going to grab one of them. You don't want to get those magnets close to each other if you have the Stamparatus. And I am just going to put my paper in here. I think I'm going to line it up. I kind of check the grid marks because I likely will have to stamp this more than once, which is why I'm using the Stamparatus. So I'm just going to line this up. I did not leave myself a lot of space to put the magnet though. So I maybe should have left the paper bigger, whatever. All right, I'm going to slide in one of the doors. And then what I want to do, I thought I was going to move that away, but I'm not. I'm going to get out my stamp. And I'm going to use this one with the Black Eyed Susans on it. And I'm going to put it down on my watercolor paper where I want it to go. Now we're going to cut this out so we don't have to worry about exactly how it's positioned on the watercolor paper. We just want it to fit. So that's what I did. I just put that on there. And then I'm going to close the door and pick up that stamp. All right, now I'm going to slide this over so we can see. I am using Stays On tonight because I'm doing watercoloring, and this is going to be a permanent ink. It's a permanent solvent ink, an alcohol ink, so it's not going to react with the water. I'm going to ink that up really well, and then we're going to press this on to my stamparatus. I forgot to get out my little, I have a fancy little, oh, I'm getting, let's move that light out of the way. All right. I have a fancy, okay, it's not fancy. It's an old baby receiving blanket that I use when I'm watercoloring, and we'll see why I use it, but it's also good for smushing down. See, that's why I paid attention to where I had put it, because you can tell it didn't get quite as dark as I wanted. So we're going to try to stamp this again. Hopefully I get it back in just the same spot. We'll see how we do. Fingers crossed. If not, there's always two sides of the paper. We can turn it over. I'm going to ink up my stamp again. Because the watercolor paper is rough, it has what we call tooth. It's really good for soaking up water, but it does mean that for a stamped image, a lot of times you are going to have to stamp it more than once to get a really nice clean image. All right, so I'm going to just squish that down. Pick it up again, and it's stuck. All right, we're getting better. I think I might try it one more time. Hopefully I don't mess it up. Let's try it one more time. So I'm lining it up where I had it. Now, if you needed to, you could draw on this paper, make a mark where it was. Put that down again. Hopefully I don't mess it up this time. Like that is, like this is pretty good, and I can stop there, and probably I'll stamp it a third time and I'll totally get off. Ooh, I smudged it down there. It does take a second to dry. I think it'll be okay though. All right. Smush that down. Baby blanket to the rescue. Yes, I've had this for ages. I mean, since I had babies, which was 25 years ago. It's still kind of, well, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to go with it. We got a nice image. I am going to go ahead and clean off my stamp right away, just because I was using the Stays On. So I kind of just want to get what I can off the stamp and not let it sit there. And then we can move this out of the way. We'll put that aside and we can do our watercoloring. So here's our piece. I'm going to pull in some clear blocks. I do have this on the rubber mat that comes with the Glass Mat Studio, just because it's going to hold my blocks down while I use those for watercoloring. So I think I want to start. Let me see. Where do I want to start? Do I want to start with the leaves? No, I'm going to start with the yellow. I'm going to start with the yellow because I kind of want to give some space. I want to not do things that are right next to each other, right in a row. Kind of let it dry just a little bit. The thing when you're using watercolor, when you're using watercolor paper, the ink isn't going to go where the paper isn't necessarily wet. So where the paper is dry, unless you have a lot of water that you're putting down, it's not going to run. If you want your colors to run, you want to wet the paper before you start coloring. I'm going to use my water painter. One of the things you have to know about these is that when you go to fill them up, the top comes off by turning them the wrong direction. So righty, loosey, lefty, tighty. But I have filled these with water. I'm using the one in the center. I like this because I don't have to worry about having a glass of water on my desk that I inevitably will push over. Now, when I color these, I am going to go ahead and leave some white space. Just, you'll see when I pull out the paper, that's kind of how it is on the paper. And I want to mimic that. So I'm not coloring in the whole petals. I'm kind of leaving space. I'm going to come in and add a little more. When you add more layers, it is going to get darker. And if you let it dry and then you add more, it will get even darker. All right, so there's one flower. And just coloring these in as I go. Again, I can come back in, add more color. The drier your brush is, the more vibrant, the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Your color is going to be more saturated. So the drier the paper, the drier the brush, the more saturated your color is going to be. So if you want a really saturated color, you might want to stay pretty dry. If you want a more washed out color, then more water. All right, there is my yellow for my flowers. Now, the reason I have the baby blanket with these water painters, what they like to do is that when you push water out, they will suck back up what is left in the brush. So, and that includes the color. And I don't really want to suck back up that yellow color. So what I do is I push out some water and then I wipe it off before I let go. Okay. So I push out a little water. I hold on to it with my baby blanket and then I let go. And that way it kind of gets the color out on the blanket before it starts sucking back up into the barrel. So I keep this clear. Sherry, is this watercolor paper? Yeah, Sherry, this is watercolor paper that I am using. All right, I'm going to come in with some boho blue. And the boho blue is one of the 2023, 2025 in colors. So it's going to be going away in May. So if you like this color, you want to grab it. I'm going to be honest. Boho blue, not my favorite color. It's like a country blue. And I'm pretty sure that my entire house when I was a child was this color. And I think that's why I'm kind of a little bit on the boho blue. But I know lots of people love it. It is like a country blue. So if you like it, now's the time to start stocking up on the cardstock and the re-inkers and all the things because it will be going away soon. All right, and I'm just coloring these little flowers. And again, I'm trying to leave a little bit of white space. I want this to look like I colored really fast. And I am coloring kind of fast, but maybe I want it to look like I colored even faster. Now you could definitely color these with Stampin' Blends instead. There's no reason you have to watercolor it. I just wanted to do something different tonight. I'm going to come in and try to add a little bit darker color in here. Try to get shading just a little bit. All right, there we go. We'll come back in down here too. Add a little bit more. And there's our little tiny blue flowers. So now we have blue flowers. It's a dusky blue tone that goes well with Misty Moonlight. It does go well with Misty Moonlight. You are very correct. All right. So I'm going to squeeze that out. I mean, yeah, I know lots of people love boho blue. It is a very nice blue. I think I'm not really a blue person. Blue is not my color. And so I don't gravitate towards it. All right. I'm going to do the centers of my Black-Eyed Susan. And for those, I'm going to use some pecan pie. Now, all of my inking here, all I am doing is I'm just taking my ink pad and smushing it on a clear block and using that to pick up the color. So we're going to pick up some of that. I'm going to start on this side here. I'm going to start over here. And then I think I'm actually going to spread this out a little bit more. I'm going to try to get some of this pecan pie out of my brush, because I kind of want to fill in that center, but I want it to be kind of light. So I'm just going to take, and you can see the yellow was still wet, so now it's running. I should have taken my heat tool to it, but that's okay. Just bring in some more water and just kind of pick up some of this color in the center. I can dry my brush off, and then I can pick up some of the water I just added to there, and that's going to remove some of that color. So I had a little bit more color than what I wanted in there. So what I did is I just picked up some water. Okay, I got my brush nice and wet. I'll do it again over here. And I added that to the center. So there's a bunch of water on there. Then I dried my brush out, and I just pulled some of that water back off. And that's going to pull out some of that color. All right, now I'm just adding a little bit more on the edges. There we go. We have the centers to our Black-Eyed Susans. Brown-Eyed Susans, Black-Eyed Susans. All right. And now I just need to do the greenery. And I'm going to do the greenery in Mossy Meadow. And then we can start building the card. And there's lots of cool stuff about this card too, even beyond the watercoloring. So, all right, so I have a little bit of Mossy Meadow on there. I'm going to pick up some Mossy Meadow and just start adding it on here. Now, again, if I really wanted this to run all over, I could wet the paper before I put down the ink. So if I took my brush and I painted water where I wanted the ink to go, and then I added ink to it, it would flow into those areas. But I kind of want a heavier look tonight, so that's not necessarily the technique I'm going for. Just adding in the color, doing the stems too. So I kind of got a base color down there, and then I think I'm going to come in, and I'm just coming in with a little bit more water and letting that run into it just a little bit more. Again, I might pull up some of this color because it's maybe a little bit darker than what I want. So we'll dry out my brush and maybe just come in, pick some of that up. I didn't put down a ton of water. I just put a little bit. And we could come in and add more shading in. Remember, the drier your brush, the more saturated the color is going to be. So I'm using a really dry brush right now and adding in that shading on the edges. All right, I think I'm happy with that. What do y'all think? Does that look pretty good? You can see the centers of my flowers ran a little bit, but I'm okay with that. Super fun. All right, let's turn this into a card. I'm going to move the watercolor stuff out of the way, hopefully, before I make a giant mess with it, because I am prone to do that. All right. we're going to save this. I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm just going to zap this just a little bit to try to dry it a little bit more before I start die cutting it. All right, and then we'll let that sit for a minute. I'll die cut that piece last. I'm going to start with a piece of Mossy Meadow. This is 4¼ by 11 inches, and I've scored it at 5½. I'm going to fold it in half, line up the bottom, and I'm going to give it a good squish with my bone folder. Now, one of the other things that I am using tonight is I'm going to be using the Everyday Arches dies. Now, these come with this fabulous stamp set. It's part of a bundle. It has this fun stamp set. I'm not using the stamp set tonight. I'm just using the dies because I want to kind of make a fun shaped card. So I'm going to show you these dies. They're just arches. Look at this. Aren't they cool? I'm going to grab the biggest one. I'm going to grab the biggest one and the next to biggest one. And we're going to start by cutting out this arch from our Mossy Meadow card base. So I'm going to pull out my cutting plate. Now I have this with, this is the folded edge right up here. I'm going to put my die on here, and I want the die to come just above that folded edge because I don't want to cut all the way through that folded edge. I want to have a folded card still. But I want to get that arch look in there. So we're just putting the die just above that folded edge up there. It is a lot of dies, isn't it? All right. I'm going to run this through my cut and emboss machine. Oh. This is going to give us a fun card shape with a arch top, as long as I didn't cut it too close to the arch, too close to the top. Nope, there we go. So now we have this card. I can get it open. Oh, isn't that fun? Like it opens at the top. Now I could have cut it and put the open side over here, but I don't know. I wanted to put it at the top. So that's what I did. All right. Now I'm going to set the large arch aside. I have a piece of the pattern paper, which is so pretty. Now, can you see how on the pattern paper, there's that white in there? So that's what I was going for, was it's a little bit of extra white that's there. And then I have a piece of basic white, and I want an arch cut out of both of these. So I'm going to layer them up. And I have this second largest arch. And this is what, where do I want this? Put this up here. This is what I'm going to cut out. Actually, I'm going to move this down. I just want to make sure that it cuts all the way through that white. There we go. All right, I'm going to cut this out. All I'm doing is I'm cutting the white and the pattern paper at the same time, so I don't have to run things through my cut and emboss machine so many times. We got enough to do. All right. Run that through. And this is going to give us a card front and the inside of our card. Hello, Janice. Welcome. All right. Pull that off. So now we're going to use this one on the card front, and then we have the white for the inside of my card. All right. And I want to cut out my flowers. Hopefully, yep, those are pretty dry now. I'm going to grab the Mixed Florals dies. And isn't this one cool? I have another card that I'm going to show you that uses that die. But I'm going to grab this one that is going to cut out this big flower arrangement. And there's little dies to cut out the ladybugs. Oh, awesome. It's good stuff. All right. So I'm just going to line this up on here as best I can. We'll stick this down and run this through my cut and emboss machine. And that's going to be at the end of our cutting. We're going to be on to other stuff. There we go. We'll pull this off. My sticky note broke in half. It's okay. I used it 3 times. It's pretty good now. All right. So there is our die cut image. Isn't that pretty? Now I'm going to adhere this to the front of this. Actually, you know what? I think, yeah, I just went ahead and adhered this to my card front first. So we're going to start with that. I'm going to adhere this piece to my card front. Find my green glue. All right. I have a snot piece on my green glue. I don't want to touch it with my fingers because that will make my fingers all sticky. All right, this is just going to go on here. I love how there's so many of these arches that they're great for layering. Super, super easy to layer. There we go. Now we're going to pull out. This is some of the natural, what is it called? Natural Tones linen thread. This is actually supposed to be garden green, but I'm going to use it with the Mossy Meadow. It's going to work just fine. I'm going to see about how much I want because I'm going to do 2 pieces. So I'm just going to fold this in half and cut it. And then we'll line up the ends and we'll cut it in the center. Because then I'm going to tie it in a bow with 2 pieces. Make a double bow. Pull that in. Do all the fidgety stuff with this. So whenever I make a double bow, I like my bows to be a little bit different sizes. So I just pull 1 string on each side to make one of the bows smaller than the other. And this is going to go in here someplace. We'll just set it there for now. I want to pull out the sentiment. You love watercolor, but you need a lot of practice. I think, I think that a little bit of practice, you're going to start seeing amazing results. Amazing results, especially when you're just coloring in images, right? Like I would never try to actually watercolor something from scratch with no stamped images. But when I'm just watercoloring in stamped images, it's so much easier. All right. So these are the Greetings for All Mix and Match ephemera pack, and I love it because it has all these sentiments, and I'm going to use the one that says thank you this evening. We're going to put it in here. So I'm just starting to layer things up. Let's put down my double bow. I'm going to use some mini glue dots for that. These mini glue dots, you can't really see them. Can you see? Oh, there you can go. You can kind of see it. But they're little tiny dots. They're on this piece of backing paper. And I just take the knot, stick it in there, and then pick it up with the glue dot on it. And then stick it where I want it. Which is an easy way. All right, let's see how we did. I'm going to put this in here. Oh, beautiful. It's going to be great. So I'm going to put my thank you on with some Stampin' Dimensionals, I think. I'm looking at the card I made, and I'm not always like remembering which order I did things. All right, we're going to put one up there, one down here. Let me see. And yeah, I'm going to put one over here in this corner. Let's see how that's going to work. I always try it out. See, that's like it's a little too big. I'm going to pull that off. I'm going to put a mini on here. I always try it out before I stick it down because you can pull the dimensionals off if you need to, which is what I just did. I'm going to put a little tiny mini over here. Let's see if that works better. Oh, it is. That's going to work better because I don't want to get dimensionals over this knot because then it's going to make it really lumpy. I don't like that. Not a fan. So I always try to like avoid the knot. I'm leaving this blank. I'm leaving this without a dimensional up here because I am going to slide a flower underneath that corner, I think. So I want to give myself space. I'm going to make sure that, there we go. All right, there's our thank you. Now, yeah, see, we're going to bring this in like this. Actually, I think this is a little bit high. Let's move it down. Go. All right, this is going to come in here like this. Oh, it's going to be so pretty. It's going to be so pretty. You love the DSP. I know. This is my favorite piece of it. All right, I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of here. I'm going to put dimensionals under the flowers. Put one up here. And we'll just leave both of those there. And I'm going to put one down here. Let's see how that is. Yep, that'll be great. This is going to go underneath. We're going to put the ribbon on top or the twine. All sorts of layering going on. All right, we're going to bring it in like that. One more thing though, before I do this, I'm going to put a little bit of green glue on the stem because I want the stem to be like sticking down and the flowers kind of be popping up off the background. So I'm going to pull those backs off so it's ready to go. And then I'm going to bring this in and just add some green glue in here to that edge. Now we'll try to get this back under here how we want it. And lining that up. Oops. Go over just a little bit. Make sure we get our flowers on there. There we go. So now, I don't know if you can see that. It's hard to see it in the camera, but this side is flat and then that is popped up. Keep my strings going the right way. There we go. You can kind of take your fingernail and pull it under those strings and that will kind of, it'll bend them. It'll curl them. It'll curl them the way you want sometimes. I'm not going to say always because sometimes they're persnickety and they don't do what you want. But there we go. I'm going to add the inside to my card. And then we have one more thing we're going to add. And then I have 2 more cards to show you. Because I had so much fun playing with all of these supplies. All right, so this arch is just going to go on the inside. I love how those just layer right up. So cool. All right, let's add. You love this card, Lena. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you, guys. All right, here's these little teeny tiny bees. Can you see the tiny bees? We're going to add some bees to this. So I have my take your pick tool. I'm going to use the putty end. Twist it just a little bit. Actually, well, maybe not, because I'm putting these on. These bees, you have to put them on with mini glue dots. And the mini glue dots are just a little bit big. So then you have to kind of squish down the edges. And then I was thinking I will put this on my, nope, it's not going to work. I was going to use my putty end. I'm just going to have to use my fingers. All right, let's see. Let's put one in here. They're teeny tiny. They are teeny, teeny, tiny bees. And let's grab another one. Oops, that was the front of it. We want to grab the back. And then again, I'm just kind of folding in some of the mini glue dots so it doesn't stick out the edges. We're going to do one more. So we have 3 on there. I'm going to do this one down here. So, all right, put that on my mini glue dot. Mini glue dots are pretty small, but they still, you just got to kind of roll it over. All right. My fingers are too big. I'm just going to put this one in here. There we go. So there is my card front. I'm going to hold that up so maybe you can see the bees on there. Aren't they cute? Those just little tiny bees. Ah, so much floral funness going on here. There we go. There's our card with this nice arch top. It just opens up. So cool. Let me show you the other 2 cards I have though, because they're really pretty too. All right, this one I did in boho blue. And again, I used that Greetings for All Mix and Match ephemera. This is the new scalloped edge ribbon, and it's a little bit wide for what I wanted. So I cut it in half, and then I tied it in a bow. So it kind of has this distressed, frayed look to it. I watercolored my tulips with some petal pink and a little calypso coral. Are the bees chunky or kind of flat? They are both chunky and kind of flat. The back of the bees is flat. And then the front of the bees, you can see it's got texture to it. So the front is like a textured bee and the back is flat. So, and then the greens, I used Shy Shamrock and Mossy Meadow and Granny Apple Green. And those are all the colors that are in the pattern paper. So there we go. And then I used some of the low profile dots on this one. All right, this next one might be my favorite. So here we go again. I use that same Black Eyed Susans from the first one. Now this one, I actually use Stampin' Blends on it instead of watercolor. And it looks very similar, but it does look a little bit different. So I use Stampin' Blends on that one. I did those green weedy background in Old Olive and then layered it on a piece of Mossy Meadow. And there's actually 2 pieces of Mossy Meadow there. Can you see that? Because I trimmed the edges to match the top piece and then I put it on another layer just to give it a little tiny border. I cut this with those arches as well, one of the smaller arches. And then I added one of the mix and match ephemera pieces and I colored in the hello with my Old Olive Stampin' Blends. So really fun. And I added some bees on there too. Oh, anyway, I think this one might be my favorite. I don't know. You tell me which of them is your favorite. Hopefully you like them. Hopefully you are in love with the Mixed Florals. I'm trying to what's the name of the set again? With the Mixed Florals stamp set and dies. And the paper and all the good stuff. Like I said, it is an online exclusive. So you'll just have to pop over to my website, pops over to my Stampin' Up store and look for it there. I believe the link is in the description to the video on YouTube. So you love them all. Janice, the blue is your favorite. Kimberly, you say it's too hard to choose. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that y'all love them. It was really fun to make. I've had a fun evening. I hope that you'll come back next week. Next week, Tuesday, is our January online card class. And we're going to be using the Hugs for Love stamp set. And that has been, I don't know, I just love that stamp set. It's one of my favorites. It's so fun to work with. So fun to work with. So I'm really excited for next week's cards. And I hope you'll join me next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Otherwise, have a good weekend, and I will see you then.